Hey guys, tonight we're plunging headfirst into the untamed, chaotic world of Greek myths you've probably never stumbled across. Imagine this: you're perched on a rocky cliff overlooking ancient Crete, the sun scorching your skin, while below a palace buzzes with secrets too scandalous to whisper. These aren't the polished tales of gods and heroes you read in school. These are the raw, unfiltered stories, so wild, so unhinged that even Zeus might blush. But here's the kicker: you probably won't survive the sheer madness of what's coming your way. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Oh, and drop a comment with your location and local time. I love knowing where you're all at. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Greek myths aren't just stories, they're the ancient world's version of a reality TV train wreck packed with drama, betrayal, and twists that leave you speechless. Sure, you've heard of Hercules flexing his muscles or Perseus slaying Medusa, but tonight we're ditching the mainstream playlist. We're digging into the obscure, the bizarre, the downright jaw-dropping tales that got buried under the big names. Think gods with impulse control issues, mortals making the worst decisions imaginable, and creatures so strange you'll wonder who came up with this stuff. From a king cursed to devour himself, to a queen head over heels for a bull, these myths are the hidden gems of ancient Greece, unpolished, unapologetic, and utterly wild. Let's kick things off with a story that's equal parts disturbing and mesmerizing: the tale of Pasiphae and the Minotaur. You're standing in the heart of King Minos' palace on Crete, where the air hums with the scent of olive groves and the faint tang of sea salt. Marble columns tower around you, cool under your fingertips, but there's a buzz and unease that prickles your skin. Queen Pasiphae drifts through the halls, her silk robes trailing behind her, but her gaze is distant, locked on something no one else can see. Whispers ripple through the servants she's been sneaking out at night, drawn to the royal stables. You'd think it's a classic case of royal boredom, but oh no, this is Greek mythology, where weird is just the starting line. It all traces back to Minos, her husband, pulling a fast one on Poseidon the sea god, with a temper shorter than a summer storm. Minos begged Poseidon for a sign of divine favor, and Poseidon delivered a white bull so stunning it practically glowed, emerging from the waves like a living sculpture. The deal was simple: sacrifice the bull to honor Poseidon. But Minos, being Minos, thought, why waste a perfectly good bull? So he kept it and offered up a scrawny substitute instead. Spoiler alert: gods don't like being punked. Poseidon, fuming, decided to hit Minos where it hurt by messing with his wife in the most unhinged way possible. Suddenly, Pasiphae's world tilts. You watch her pause in the palace courtyard, her breath quickening as she spots that white bull grazing nearby. Her heart races, her mind spins, and she's gripped by a love so intense it's almost comical if it weren't so creepy. Love is blind, sure, but in this case, it's also species confused. She can act on this alone, though, so she turns to Daedalus, the resident genius, with a knack for solving problems no one should have. Picture him as the ancient Greek equivalent of a guy who'd sell you a custom contraption on Etsy, no questions asked. Pasiphae begs him for help, and Daedalus, probably sighing, crafts a wooden cow hollow covered in real hide and disturbingly lifelike. She climbs inside, the bull falls for it, and well, nature takes its deeply unnatural course. Fast forward 9 months, and you're there as Pasiphae gives birth to the Minotaur, a hulking beast with a man's body and a bull's head snorting and pawing at the ground. Minos nearly chokes on his wine, then orders Daedalus to whip up a labyrinth to hide this family embarrassment. You can almost hear Minos muttering, "This is why we can't have nice things." The Minotaur's roars echo through the twisting corridors, a living reminder of divine payback and really bad life choices. But is there more to this than just a wild story historians think so? Crete's ancient bull-leaping rituals, where daring teens vaulted over charging bulls in front of cheering crowds, might have inspired this myth. The palace at Knossos, with its sprawling maze-like design, could have fueled the labyrinth idea too. That's your mainstream fact grounded in archaeology. Then there's the quirky bit some old texts hint that Daedalus' wooden cow wasn't just a one-off. Apparently, he was proud of his craftsmanship, like it was his magnum opus. And scholars, they're still duking it out over whether the Minotaur tale reflects real tensions between Crete and Greece, or if it's just a metaphor for chaos like an earthquake blamed on a ticked-off bull god. You're left standing at the labyrinth's edge, the Minotaur's distant bellows fading into the night. Greek myths like this don't pull punches, they're raw messy and stick with you. Tonight's just the beginning, a teaser of the weirdness ahead gods, with bizarre pets, heroes who stumble more than they shine, and goddesses who rewrite the rules. So settle in, let Crete's salty breeze wash over you, and brace yourself for more. Imagine you're perched on the edge of Mount Olympus, the air buzzing with divine energy, clouds curling around your toes like a celestial carpet. You're not here for the view, though it's the pets that catch your eye. The Greek gods didn't settle for ordinary companions like cats or goldfish. Their pets were as wild and extraordinary as the myths themselves. These creatures weren't just sidekicks. They reflected the gods' power quirks and sometimes their downright strangeness. So grab a seat and let's wander through this mythical pet parade to meet the weirdest companions the ancient world ever saw. Zeus and his thunderbolt-toting eagle picture. Zeus sprawled on his golden throne, a sly grin on his face as his eagle perches nearby. This isn't some backyard birdets, the ruler of the skies, with feathers glinting like polished armor, and talons that could snatch a thunderbolt mid-flight. In ancient art, you'd see it soaring, lightning gripped tight, ready to smite anyone who annoyed the king of the gods. But the real kicker, some myths say this eagle was once Ganymede, a Trojan prince so stunning that Zeus swooped down either as the eagle or with it to kidnap him for Olympus. Was it a love obsession or just a godly whim? Either way, this pet's origin story is a soap opera with wings. Poseidon's hippocampus, the OG seahorse. Now plunge into the ocean where Poseidon lounges in his coral-crusted palace. His chariot's pulled by hippocampi half-horse, half-fish marvels, with manes like liquid gold and tails that ripple through the waves. These aren't tiny seahorses you'd spot in a tank. They're mighty, maybe even bending the tides to Poseidon's command in some tales. Fun fact, hippocampus also names a seahorse-shaped part of your brain tied to memory and navigation. Did Poseidon pick pets with a deeper meaning, or is it just a cosmic coincidence? Either way, they're the ancient equivalent of a tricked-out speedboat. Hades' underworld menagerie, Cerberus and friends, descend to the underworld, where Hades reigns amid shadows and whispers, his star pet Cerberus, the three-headed dog with a serpent's tail and a mane of writhing snakes, is a bouncer with Bite guarding the gates of the dead. But here's the twist. Some stories say he wagged his tail for new arrivals, only snapping at escapees. A softy, at heart maybe. Hades didn't stop there, though. He also kept the chimera lion goat and serpent in one, and the Nemean lion, its golden hide tougher than steel. His pet collection screams, "Do not disturb," and you'd be wise to listen. Athena's wise, and judgy owl. Back on Olympus. Athena's owl stares down from her shoulder, its eyes like twin moons. This bird's all about wisdom, its night vision echoing Athena's knack for piercing life's mysteries. But in ancient Greece, owls doubled as omens of doom, not just brainy buddies. So while Athena's plotting her next move, her owl's probably thinking, "Nice try, mortals, but I've seen your fate." It's the perfect pet for a goddess who's always ahead of the game and maybe a tad smug about it. Apollos, prophetic swan, choir. Then there's Apollo, cruising the heavens in a chariot drawn by swans. These aren't your average pond dwellers. They're radiant golden, and legend says they sang prophecies and haunting melodies. Imagine them harmonizing the future as they glide past a feathered forecast team. But swans can be scrappy too, hissing at anyone who gets too close. Apollo's pets might have been as much divas as they were oracles stealing the spotlight with every flap. Artemis and her fierce deer squad step into a moonlit forest where Artemis prowls with a deer at her heels. These aren't Bambi's cousins, they're swift sacred, and sometimes hitched to her chariot, bolting across the sky. In one myth, she turned a peeping mortal into a deer, as punishment so her pet might be a living warning. Mess with me, and your venison. They're wild and untouchable, a perfect match for a goddess who rules the hunt. Ares' battlefield vulture. Shift to a battlefield where Ares strides through the chaos, a vulture wheeling above. These scavengers feasting on the fallen fit the war god's brutal vibe. Yet vultures also tidy up nature's messes, making them unsung heroes of the ecosystem. Ares' pet might be a grim symbol, with a hidden upside like a warrior who secretly recycles. Hermes' musical tortoise. Now meet Hermes' tortoise plodding along with a shell that sparked genius. Myth says Hermes scooped out its insides to craft the lyre-turning pet into instrument. Was it a companion first, or just a DIY project? Either way, it's a slow and steady muse for a god who's all about quick thinking and sly moves. Dionysus and his party panthers stagger into a vineyard, and you'll spot Dionysus with a panther slinking nearby. These sleek spotted cats mirror his untamed spirit, fierce, free, and ready to pounce on the next party. But panthers prefer their own company, so maybe this pet sneaks off when the wine flows too freely. It's the ideal wingman for a god of revelry, wild but not clingy. Hephaestus automaton, guard dogs. Finally peek into Hephaestus' forge, where his automaton dogs stand watch. These metal mutts forge with precision, guard his workshop with glowing eyes and snapping jaws. Some myths say he built robotic helpers too, so his pets might double as staff. They're like high-tech guard dogs, loyal, efficient, and a little unsettling. A little history, a quirky fact, and a debate. These pets aren't just quirky, they're rooted in Greek mythology's core. Historically, animals like Zeus' eagle or Athena's owl symbolize their master's domains, a staple of ancient storytelling. Here's a weird nugget: Poseidon's hippocampus might be ruled the tides in some versions, making waves literally and figuratively. And scholars still argue, were these creatures worshipped at temples, or were they just poetic flair? The jury's out, but they sure spice up the tales, connecting to the next adventure. These divine pets were more than oddities. They mirrored the gods' personalities and powers, but their influence doesn't stop there. Ever wonder how these myths sneak into our everyday words? From hippocampus in science to phrases born from godly antics, Greek stories linger in our language. Next, let's dive into myths behind your favorite words and uncover how these ancient tales still whisper in what we say. You might not realize it, but the words you toss around every day are dripping with the drama and intrigue of Greek mythology. From the gods' petty squabbles to the heroes' epic quests, these ancient stories have snuck into our language like uninvited guests who never leave. So settle in and let's wander through the myths behind some of your favorite words, uncovering the wild tales that breathe life into them. Take the phrase Achilles' heel for starters. You've probably used it to point out someone's weak spot. Maybe your friend's obsession with binge watching that one show they can't quit. But do you know where it comes from? Meet Achilles, the Trojan War's golden boy, a warrior so tough he was practically invincible. His mom Thetis dipped him in the river Styx as a baby, holding him by the heel, leaving that one little patch unprotected. Fast forward to the battlefield, and boom, an arrow finds that heel, and Achilles is toast. Picture it, this chiseled hero dodging spears and swords like it's nothing, only to be undone by a single shot to his weak spot. It's like being the toughest guy at the gym, but tripping over your own shoelaces on the way out. And poor Thetis talk about a helicopter parent fail. She tried to shield him from everything, but forgot that one tiny detail. Historians still bicker about whether this heel business was literal or just a poetic jab at human flaws. Was it a real vulnerability or a warning about pride? Either way, it's stuck with us, a reminder that even the mightiest have something that can bring them down. Next, let's chat about narcissism. You know the type? Someone so in love with themselves, they'd marry their mirror if they could. It all traces back to Narcissus, a guy so good-looking, he turned heads wherever he went. One day, he caught sight of his reflection in a pool and fell hard, couldn't look away, couldn't move, just stared until he faded away, leaving a flower in his place. It's the ultimate cautionary tale about self-obsession, and it handed us a word psychologists love to throw around. Imagine Narcissus, all cheekbones and charm, ignoring the nymph Echo, who's swooning over him because he's too busy ogling himself. It's like scrolling through your own Instagram feed and missing the party happening right next to you. When he finally realized he was smitten with his reflection, it was too late. He was trapped, wasting away in his own beauty. So next time you're snapping selfies, maybe take a breather. Narcissus would approve. Now how about panic? That heart-pounding, sweaty-palmed feeling when something spooks you out of nowhere. You've got Pan to thank for that. This goat-legged god was a forest dweller, half man, half mischief, with horns and a flute to match. He loved stirring up trouble, and one of his favorite tricks was sending sudden irrational fear crashing over anyone nearby. Picture yourself strolling through the woods, birds chirping, when a twig snaps, suddenly your heart's racing and you're bolting like a deer. No idea why. That's Pan's signature move, and it's where panic comes from. Oh, and here's a weird little nugget: the word museum ties back to the muses, those goddesses of art and inspiration. Back in ancient Greece, a museum was their hangout spot, a place for thinkers and creators to soak up divine vibes. So when you're wandering a museum, you're basically stepping into the muse's old clubhouse. Pretty cool, right? Then there's tantalizing. You know that ache when something's so close, but just out of reach, like the last cookie in the jar when your arms are too short. That's Tantalus' legacy. This poor guy ticked off the gods and got stuck in a nightmare punishment, standing in water under a fruit tree, forever hungry and thirsty. Reach for the apples. The branches pull back. Bend for a sip. The water slips away. It's maddening, and it gave us Tantalize to capture that cruel tease. Next time you're eyeing that last slice of pizza and someone snags it, you're living Tantalus pain minus the eternal torment thankfully. How about Herculean? You toss it out when a job feels impossible, like moving your couch solo. It's named for Hercules the demigod with muscles and a to-do list from hell. His 12 labors had him wrestling lions and chasing magical deer feats that make anyone sweat. But here's the twist. He wasn't just a brute. He had to outsmart his way through some of those tasks. So when you're facing your own Herculean challenge, remember it's not all about strength. Sometimes it's the brain that saves the day. And then there's Odyssey. You might call a long winding trip an Odyssey, and it comes straight from Odysseus, the slick hero of the Trojan War aftermath. He spent 10 years dodging cyclopes and sirens, all to get home to Ithaca and his wife Penelope. It's a saga of grit and guile with detours galore. So when you're on your own epic journey, maybe a road trip that's gone off the rails, think of Odysseus outwitting monsters while you're just trying to find a gas station. These myths have tangled themselves into our words, painting our language with echoes of gods and heroes. But here's the thing, those stories aren't just about divine antics or monster fights. They're about the people in them, messy and human, full of quirks and stumbles. That sets us up nicely for what's next. In the following section, heroes who weren't all that heroic. We'll dig into the flip side of these legends, the heroes who weren't always so shiny, whose flaws and fumbles shaped their tales as much as their triumphs did. You've heard the tales of Greek heroes, those muscle-bound, monster-slaying legends who seem to strut through history with capes billowing behind them. But let's be real, not all of them were the shiny paragons of virtue we imagine. In fact, some were more like the guy who rage quits a video game after one bad round, or the friend who's always got a clever plan that somehow lands everyone in trouble. These heroes had their moments of glory, sure, but they also had tempers, egos, and a knack for making things messier than they needed to be. So settle in, and let's wander through the less than heroic side of Hercules, Achilles, and Odysseus, because even the greatest legends have their off days. Hercules, the strong man with anger, issues. Picture this, you're Hercules, the son of Zeus, blessed with strength that could bench press mountains. You're the guy everyone calls when there's a hydra to slay or a lion to wrestle. But here's the catch, your temper's shorter than a wick on a birthday candle. One minute you're the hero of the hour. The next you're in a blind rage, and suddenly your family's gone victims of your own hands. Yeah, that happened. Hera, Zeus' ever-jealous wife, drove you mad, and in a fit of fury you did the unthinkable. It's like the ancient version of hulking out, but with tragic consequences. To atone, you took on the 12 labor-sepic feats, like cleaning stables that hadn't seen a broom in decades, or capturing a deer that could outrun the wind. But let's not forget the quirky bit. During one of his penance gigs, you ended up cross-dressing as a servant to Queen Omphale, spinning wool while she wore your lion skin. Talk about a wardrobe swap. Scholars still bicker over whether these labors were real challenges or just symbolic trials to tame your wild side. Either way, you're left wondering if all that strength was worth the cost. Achilles, the sulker, with a weak spot. Now imagine you're Achilles, the golden boy of the Trojan War, with a face that could launch 1,000 ships, and a body that's basically bulletproof, except for that one pesky heel. Your mom dipped you in the river Styx to make you invincible, but she held you by the heel, leaving it as your Achilles heel. See what we did there. You're fierce, fearless, and frankly, a bit of a diva. When Agamemnon swipes your war prize, you throw the ultimate tantrum, refusing to fight and sulking in your tent while your comrades get pummeled. It's like refusing to play because someone took your favorite controller only with way higher stakes. Your best buddy Patroclus has to step in wearing your armor, and when he falls, you finally snap out of it, but it's too late. Your pride cost you dearly, and let's not even get into the debate about whether you and Patroclus were just really good friends or something more. Historians still duke it out over that one. And that heel. Some say it's a metaphor for human frailty. Others swear it's literal. Either way, it's a reminder that even the toughest have a soft spot. Odysseus, the trickster who couldn't stop scheming. Finally step into the sandals of Odysseus, the cleverest guy in the room, sometimes too clever for his own good. You're the mastermind behind the Trojan horse, the ultimate gotcha that ended a 10-year war. But getting home, that's another story. Your journey's a decade-long detour filled with cyclopes, sirens, and goddesses who can't get enough of you. Sure, you're resourceful, blinding Polyphemus with a hot steak is peak survival mode, but your tricks often backfire. Take the bag of winds from Iolus. You're this close to home when your crew, thinking it's treasure, opens it and blows you back to square one. It's like having a GPS that keeps rerouting you to the wrong continent. And let's not forget your knack for bending the truth, like telling Polyphemus your name is nobody to confuse him. Clever, absolutely. But it also paints a target on your back when Poseidon, the sea god, gets wind of it. Scholars still argue over whether your real home Ithaca is the one we know today or some lost island. Either way, your journey's a masterclass in how being too smart can sometimes be your undoing. These heroes weren't all shining armor and noble deeds. They were messy, flawed, and all too human. Hercules' strength couldn't save him from his own rage. Achilles' pride nearly tanked the Trojan War, and Odysseus' cleverness often dug him deeper into trouble. But that's what makes them relatable, even thousands of years later. They're not perfect, they're just trying to get by like the rest of us. And speaking of imperfections, let's not forget the goddesses who often had to clean up after these heroes, or sometimes make things even messier. In the next section, we'll dive into the goddesses you've never heard of, the divine women who shaped myths with their power wisdom. And yes, their own brand of chaos. You've heard of the big names: Athena with her wisdom, Aphrodite with her beauty, Hera with her well-intense marriage to Zeus. But Greek mythology is packed with goddesses who don't get the spotlight, even though their stories are just as wild, weird, and wonderful. These are the divine women who stirred up chaos, wielded magic, and kept the cosmos in check, all while flying under the radar. So let's wander through the lesser-known corners of Olympus and meet the goddesses you've probably never heard of, but definitely should have. Eris, the Chaos Queen, with a golden apple picture. This you're at a wedding on Mount Olympus. The air thick with ambrosia and laughter when suddenly a golden apple rolls into the crowd, inscribed with, "To the fairest." You'd think it's a cute party favor, But oh no, it's a grenade. And Eris, the goddess of discord, just pulled the pin. She wasn't invited to the wedding. Rude. So she crashed it with this little gift, sparking a beauty contest between Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite that spiraled into the Trojan War. Talk about holding a grudge. Eris wasn't just a troublemaker. She was chaos incarnate, often tagging along with Ares, the god of war, like his mischievous sidekick. But here's the quirky bit. Some myths say she had a soft spot for underdogs, stirring the pot to shake up the status quo. Scholars still bicker over whether she was a villain or just a cosmic prankster. But one thing's clear, she knew how to make an entrance. Hecate, the witchy woman of the crossroads, now step into the moonlight, where shadows stretch long and the air hums with mystery. That's Hecate's domain, the goddess of magic crossroads and all things spooky. You'd spot her with a torch in each hand, guiding lost souls, or maybe just creeping you out. She's the one Demeter turned to when Persephone vanished, using her underworld connections to help search the shadows. But Hecate's not just a helper. She's a powerhouse linked to witchcraft and the kind of spells that make your skin tingle. Fun fact, she's often shown with 3 faces, symbolizing her ability to see past, present, and future like a divine multitasker. And here's a debate for the ages. Was she a benevolent guide or a fearsome sorceress? Some say she protected travelers. Others whisper she haunted them. Either way, you'd think twice before crossing her path at a deserted crossroads. Nemesis, the karma cop with a whip. Ever felt that itch for justice when someone gets away with being a jerk? That's Nemesis, the goddess of retribution, lurking in the background, ready to serve up a cold dish of karma. She's the one who punished Narcissus for his vanity, making him fall for his own reflection until he withered away. But she wasn't just about petty revenge. She kept the balance, ensuring no one god or mortal got too big for their britches. Imagine her as the ultimate referee, whistle in hand, calling fouls on hubris. Quirky tidbit, she's often depicted with a whip or a sword, but also with an apple branch, symbolizing peace after justice is served. Scholars argue over whether she was feared or revered, but in a world where gods threw tantrums, she was the one who made sure actions had consequences. Iris, the rainbow messenger with style. Now look up, see that rainbow arcing across the sky. That's Iris, the goddess of the rainbow, zipping between the gods with messages faster than you can say Hermes. Who? While Hermes gets all the credit as the divine mailman, Iris was the OG courier, especially for Hera. She didn't just deliver memos. She was the bridge between heaven and earth, her rainbow path a literal stairway to the gods. And here's the kicker. She had a twin sister, Arche, who sided with the Titans and got her wings clipped talk about family drama. Iris, though, stayed loyal and fabulous, her multicolored robes trailing behind her like a pride parade float. Was she just a pretty face, or did her rainbows hold deeper meaning? Some say they symbolized hope after storms, a reminder that even gods need a little light. Tyche, the luck lady, with a dice roll. Finally meet Tyche, the goddess of fortune, who's basically the reason you sometimes trip over nothing or find $1 on the street. She's unpredictable, doling out good and bad luck like it's a game of cosmic roulette. In ancient Greece, cities built temples to her, hoping she'd bless them with prosperity or at least not curse them with famine. Picture her with a crown of city walls, holding a cornucopia in one hand and a rudder in the other, steering fate's ship. But here's the twist. Some myths say she had a blindfold, making her luck truly random, while others claim she could be swayed with offerings. Scholars still debate whether she was a force of chaos or a test of character, but one thing's certain: you'd want her on your side before rolling the dice. The bigger picture and what's next. These goddesses might not have the fame of their Olympian sisters, but they shape the myths in ways that still ripple through our stories today. Eris taught us that a single act of spite can unravel empires. Hecate showed us the power of the unknown. Nemesis reminded us that no one escapes karma. Iris painted the sky with hope, and Tyche kept us humble with her whims. But their influence doesn't stop here. Some of these divine women, like Hecate, had deep ties to the underworld, a realm teeming with its own cast of eerie residents. Speaking of which, let's wander down to the land of shadows and meet the underworld's lesser-known inhabitants, because the dead have stories too, and they're just as wild as the living. Picture yourself standing at the edge of a vast, shadowy cavern. The air's thick with the scent of damp earth, and faint whispers echo from somewhere deep below. Welcome to Hades, the Greek underworld, a place where the dead hang out and the living wouldn't be caught dead visiting. But forget the A-listers like Hades' Persephone or that three-headed doggo Cerberus. Tonight, we're sneaking into the creepier, less talked about corners of this realm to meet the residents who don't get the spotlight. Grab a torch, keep your wits about you, and let's explore the underworld's unsung oddballs. The Erinyes Justice with a snarl first on our tour are the Erinyes or the Furies, if you're feeling fancy. Imagine three women who look like they've had a really bad hair day, snakes wriggling in their locks, eyes bloodshot from too much vengeance, and a wardrobe that screams, "Don't mess with me." These ladies are the underworld's enforcers, swooping in to punish anyone dumb enough to commit crimes like murder or oath-breaking. Ever hear of Orestes' poor guy, killed his mom, family issues, am I right? And the Furies hounded him until he was a gibbering wreck. They're like the ultimate guilt trip with wings. But here's the twist. Some say they weren't just about punishment. They protected the natural order too. Were they terror incarnate, or the underworld's strictest babysitters? The jury's still out, but one thing's sure: you'd rather face a minotaur than these gals on a bad day. The Keres Death's winged cleanup crew. Next up, the Keres spirits of violent death, who'd make even the toughest warrior quiver. Picture dark winged figures with claws and fangs hovering over battlefields like vultures at a buffet. They don't just collect souls. They dive into the chaos, snagging the spirits of the fallen with grim enthusiasm. In ancient Greece, spotting a cur was a one-way ticket to panic. Warriors knew these gals meant business. Fun fact, some tales suggest you could bribe them with offerings like leaving a tip for the Grim Reaper. Did it work? Doubtful, but it's a wild thought. Scholars still squabble over whether the Keres were standalone spooks or just aliases for other death spirits. Either way, they're the last thing you'd want crashing your victory party. The Oneiroi, Dreamtime Directors. Now let's slip into something a bit cozier, the realm of the Oneiroi, the gods of dreams. These guys are the underworld's creative geniuses, spinning the wild visions that dance through your head at night. Leading the pack is Morpheus the Shapeshifter, who can pop into your dreams as anyone: your best friend, a random celebrity, or that weird neighbor with the loud cat. Ever woken up from a dream thinking, "Wow, that felt real"? Thank Morpheus, she's the mastermind behind it. The Greeks saw dreams as divine memos, so the Oneiroi were a big deal, even inspiring folks to nap in temples for godly advice. Here's a quirky nugget: our word nightmare traces back to a demon that squashes you in your sleep, a vibe the Oneiroi could totally channel. Were dreams straight up messages from the gods, or just your brain unwinding? Scholars still duke it out, but the Oniroi kept the night buzzing either way. The judges Minos, Rhadamanthus, and Iacchus. Before we move on, meet the underworld's VIPs of judgment. Minos, Rhadamanthus, and Iacchus. These ex-kings now spend eternity deciding where souls end up. Elysian fields. For the good, Tartarus; for the naughty, Minos. The head honcho was a wise guy, labyrinth fame aside, but some myths paint him as a bit of a bully, tormenting souls for kicks. Rhadamanthus and Iacchus split the workload, Asia for one, Europe for the other, like the afterlife's HR department. Were they fair or just petty bureaucrats? Depends on who's telling the story. Either way, facing them was like the ultimate performance review, and you'd better hope your resume stacked up. The shades. The nameless crowd. Lastly, let's tip our hats to the shades, the countless souls drifting through Hades like a fog of forgotten faces. These aren't the epic heroes or dastardly villains. They're the regular Joes and Janes who didn't make the myth cut. In the Odyssey, Odysseus bumps into them, and they're desperate for a scrap of news from the living. He even has to pour blood into a pit to get them talking. Imagine a ghostly open mic night. It's a poignant scene showing how the Greeks saw death as a fading echo. Were these shades aware or just shadows of their old selves? Scholars can't agree, but their quiet presence adds a haunting vibe to Hades. A peek at the past. These quirky characters weren't just campfire tales. They shaped how the Greeks saw the world. The Erinyes were all about justice and fear invoked in curses to keep folks in line. The Keres reflected the brutal reality of war, a constant in Greek life. The Oniroi turned dreams into a sacred hotline to the divine, while the judges and shades showed death as a structured, inevitable gig. Fun fact, the Greeks dabbled in necromancy, using blood and chants to chat with the dead. Think of it as an ancient Zoom call with the afterlife. Scholars still tussle over the details. Were the Keres fate weavers too? Did the Furies ever chill out? These debates keep Hades' mysteries kicking. Onward, to nature's tales. Now here's where it gets juicy. The underworld doesn't just sit there brooding, it ties into the world above in wild ways. The Greeks loved explaining nature through myths, and Hades played a starring role. Take Persephone's kidnapping. It's why we've got winter, a cosmic custody battle between Earth and Underworld. But that's just the warm-up. Next time, we'll dig into how these shadowy tales and more help the Greeks decode earthquakes, eruptions, and the seasons, turning the weird and wild into stories that still echo today. So let's step out of the gloom and see what's brewing in the light. You ever wonder how people made sense of the world before Google? Like, why does the ground shake? Why do the seasons change? What's up with those twinkling dots in the sky? Well, the ancient Greeks had answers for all of it. And spoiler alert, they didn't involve tectonic plates or meteorology. Instead, they spun wild stories starring gods, goddesses, and heroes to explain the chaos of nature. These myths weren't just bedtime tales. They were the OG science, giving meaning to everything from a rumble of thunder to the stars above. So let's wander through some of these stories and see how the Greeks turned the unexplainable into epic drama. Persephone and Demeter. Why winter sucks. Let's start with the big one, the changing of the seasons. Picture this. Persephone, daughter of Demeter, the goddess of agriculture, is out picking flowers, minding her own business, when bam, the ground splits open, and Hades, the god of the underworld, yoinks her down to be his queen. Demeter, being the ultimate helicopter mom, freaks out and starts wandering the earth searching for her kid. In her grief, she lets the crops wither. The trees drop their leaves, and boom winter is born. The world turns into a barren, frosty mess because Demeter's too busy crying to do her job. But here's the twist: Zeus, seeing mortals starving and freezing, steps in like a divine mediator. He brokers a deal. Persephone spends part of the year with Hades' winter and the rest with her mom, spring and summer. When she's back, Demeter's joy brings the world to life again. It's like the ultimate custody battle, but with more flowers and fewer lawyers. This myth didn't just explain why your crops died every year. It turned the seasons into a family soap opera. Were the Greeks just trying to make sense of nature, or were they also grappling with themes of loss and reunion? Either way, it's a story that sticks with you, like that one relative who always brings drama to the holidays. Zeus, the original weatherman. Now let's talk weather. Ever been caught in a thunderstorm and thought, wow, the sky's really mad today? The Greeks took that literally. Zeus, the king of the gods, was the guy in charge of thunder and lightning. When he was ticked off, maybe Hera was nagging him about his latest fling, or some mortal forgot to sacrifice a goat head hurl, lightning bolts from the heavens. Imagine being a farmer in ancient Greece, watching dark clouds roll in and thinking, uh-oh, Zeus is in a mood again. It's like the ancient version of checking the weather app, but instead of radar, you had myths and a whole lot of anxiety. And Zeus wasn't the only one with a temper. His brother Poseidon, god of the sea, was just as moody. If a ship sank or a storm whipped up, it was because Poseidon was throwing a tantrum. The Greeks even called him Earthshaker because he was also blamed for earthquakes. Picture Poseidon stomping around with his trident, causing the ground to tremble like a toddler who didn't get his way. It's a vivid image, and it shows how the Greeks tried to make sense of nature's chaos by blaming it on divine drama queens. Poseidon, the Earthshaker. Speaking of Poseidon, let's dive into earthquakes. The Greeks lived in a seismically active region, so quakes were a regular headache. To explain them, they imagined Poseidon striking the ground with his trident, sending shockwaves through the earth. It's like he was the original percussionist, but instead of a drum, he used the planet. Were they onto something? Well, not really. Tectonic plates are the real culprits, but it's fascinating how they personified natural forces. By giving earthquakes a face, or at least a trident, they could feel like there was some logic behind the terror. Plus, it probably made for great campfire stories. The Stars, a celestial soap opera. Now look up. The night sky was the Greeks' ultimate storybook. Constellations like Orion, Cassiopeia, and the Pleiades weren't just pretty patterns. They were tales of gods, heroes and tragic lovers immortalized in the stars. Take Orion, the hunter who bragged he could kill any animal. Gaia, the earth goddess, wasn't amused and sent a scorpion to sting him. After his death, Zeus placed both Orion and the scorpion in the sky as a reminder of his hubris. Then there's Cassiopeia, the vain queen who boasted about her beauty and got stuck spinning around the North Star as punishment. And let's not forget Andromeda, chained to a rock as monster bait until Perseus swooped in to save Herbath, now twinkling above us. These stories weren't just for show. They were practical too. Sailors used the stars to navigate, so knowing the myths was like having a celestial GPS. Imagine setting sail, spotting Orion, and thinking, all right, if I follow the hunter, I'll find my way home. It turned the night sky into a familiar landscape, filled with friends, foes, and a whole lot of drama. And fun fact, the zodiac signs we still use today, like Aries, or Pisces come from Greek myths too. So when you check your horoscope, you're tapping into a tradition that's been around for millennia, all thanks to the Greeks and their love of storytelling. A peek at the past and what's next. These myths are more than just quirky explanations. They're windows into how the Greeks saw the world. Nature wasn't random. It was a tapestry woven by the gods, each stormquake or starry night a thread in their divine drama. And while we might chuckle at the idea of Zeus throwing lightning bolts when he's cranky, there's something timeless about trying to find meaning in the chaos. Speaking of chaos, some of the wildest myths involve love stories that defy all logic, tales of gods and mortals, tangled in romances that are as bizarre as they are unforgettable. So let's leave the natural world behind and dive into the strangest love stories of Greek mythology, where passion and madness go hand in hand. You think modern dating is wild? Wait till you hear about the love stories from Greek mythology. These aren't your typical boy meets girl tales. They're packed with gods turning into animals, lovers transforming into trees, and romances so bizarre you'll wonder what the ancients were smoking. But hey, these myths weren't just for kicks. They were the Greeks' way of exploring loves, highs, lows, and downright weirdness. So, grab a seat, maybe a snack. Trust me, you'll need it, and let's dive into the strangest love stories that ever came out of Olympus. Zeus and Io. When love turns you into a cow. Imagine you're chilling in a meadow, minding your own business, when suddenly a cloud swoops down and poof, you're a cow. That's Io's story. Zeus, the ultimate playboy of the gods, fell for her hard. But since his wife Hera had a knack for sniffing out his flings, Zeus turned Io into a cow to hide her. Hera, not fooled for a second, claimed the cow as a gift and set Argus, a hundred-eyed watchman, to guard her. Zeus, desperate, sent Hermes to lull Argus to sleep and free Io. But Hera, ever the grudge holder, sent a gadfly to torment Io, driving her across continents. It's like a divine soap opera where the mortals are just props. And let's be real, if your partner turns you into a cow to hide an affair, it's time to rethink that relationship. This myth shows how the Greeks saw love as a force that could uplift or utterly wreck you, especially when gods were involved. Were they warning us about the perils of passion or just having a laugh? Either way, Io's tale is a wild ride. Apollo and Daphne, the chase that ended in Leaves' picture. Apollo, the golden boy of Olympus, strutting around with his lyre, thinking he's irresistible. Then he spots Daphne, a nymph who wants nothing to do with him. Apollo, not taking no for an answer, chases her through the forest like a lovesick puppy. Just as he's about to catch her, Daphne calls out to her dad, a river god, who turns her into a laurel tree. Apollo, heartbroken, declares the laurel his sacred tree, which is why winners get laurel wreaths. It's a story that screams, consent matters even in ancient times. Daphne's transformation is a stark reminder that sometimes the only way to escape unwanted attention is to become something else entirely. And Apollo, will he learn that even gods can't always get what they want? Though let's be honest, he probably didn't learn much. This myth is a quirky nod to the Greeks' love of nature and their belief that love could literally change you. Pasiphae and the bull. A love that defies logic and biology. This one's a doozy. Pasiphae, queen of Crete, falls in love with a bull thanks to Poseidon, cursing her for her husband's disrespect. She enlists Daedalus, the master craftsman, to build her a wooden cow so she can, get close to the bull. The result? The Minotaur, a half-man, half-bull creature that becomes the star of the labyrinth. This myth is wild on so many levels, from the sheer absurdity of the romance to the monstrous offspring. It's like a cautionary tale about what happens when you let your passions run unchecked or when you mess with the gods. And poor Daedalus always getting roped into these bizarre projects. You have to wonder if he ever thought, maybe I should just stick to building bird cages. Scholars still debate whether this story was meant to be taken literally or as a metaphor for forbidden desires. Either way, it's a love story that's hard to forget. Pygmalion and Galatea, when you love your own creation. Imagine being so fed up with dating that you carve your perfect partner out of ivory. That's Pygmalion, a sculptor who couldn't find a woman who met his standards, so he made one. He fell in love with his creation, and Aphrodite, feeling generous, brought the statue to life. They lived happily ever after, which is sweet but also creepy. It's like the ancient version of building a robot girlfriend. This myth taps into the human desire for control and perfection in relationships, but it also raises questions about objectification. Was Galatea truly happy, or was she just fulfilling Pygmalion's fantasy? It's a love story with a side of existential dread. Fun fact, this tale inspired everything from My Fair Lady to Weird Science, proving that the idea of creating your ideal partner is timeless and a little unsettling. Orpheus and Eurydice, the look that killed love. Orpheus, the musician who could charm anyone with his lyre, falls for Eurydice, but she dies shortly after their wedding. Heartbroken, he journeys to the underworld to bring her back. Hades agrees on one condition: Orpheus can't look back at her until they're both in the sunlight. Of course, just as they're about to make it, Orpheus glances back and Eurydice is lost forever. It's a gut punch of a story, showing how love can drive us to impossible feats and how doubt can undo it all. It's like that moment when you almost win the game but fumble at the last second. Orpheus' tale is a reminder that sometimes love isn't enough, and that's a hard pill to swallow. The Greeks loved their tragedies, and this one hits hard, blending romance with the inevitability of loss. A peek at the past and what's next. These love stories are a mixed bag of passion transformation and downright strangeness. But if you think these romances are wild, wait until you meet the creatures that lurk in the shadows of these myths. From the Minotaur born of Pasiphae's bizarre affair to the monsters that heroes had to face. Greek mythology is packed with beasts so bizarre, Hollywood wouldn't dare touch them. So let's leave the lovebirds behind and venture into the dark where the real oddities await. Greek mythology is a treasure trove of the weird, the wild, and the downright terrifying. While Hollywood loves its dragons and giant spiders, the monsters of ancient Greece are so bizarre they'd leave even the boldest special effects artists scratching their head. These creatures defy logic, physics, and sometimes basic decency, yet that's exactly what makes them unforgettable. From seductive demons with mismatched legs to bulls with weaponized dung, here's a lineup of Greek mythology's strangest beasts that are too outlandish for the silver screen. The Empusa, a date from hell. Imagine you're lost in a shadowy forest, the air thick with unease. A sultry voice calls out, and a stunning woman emerges, her hair ablaze with fiery light. But as she approaches, you spot the catch. One leg is solid bronze, the other a donkey's hoof. Before you can bolt, she transforms into a flesh-hungry demon, the Empusa, a servant of Hecate, goddess of witchcraft. This shapeshifter lured travelers to their doom. Her combo of beauty and grotesque horror is pure nightmare. Fuel no CGI budget could do her justice. the Lamia snake woman with a grudge. Next up is the Lamia, a tragic figure turned monstrous. Once a beautiful queen, she caught Zeus wandering, atypical. Hera, ever the vengeful spouse, cursed her into a serpent-bodied terror with a taste for children. Creepiest feature, she could pop out her own eye shandy for stalking prey in the dark. Greek parents spun Lamia tales to keep kids in line, proving that mythology doubles as the ultimate babysitter. A slithering, eye-plucking predator, too weird for Hollywood's playbook. The Cetus jaws, on steroid sailors, beware the Cetus isn't your average sea monster. This whale-sized beast with a penchant for human snacks terrorized Ethiopia's coast in the myth of Andromeda, sent by Poseidon to punish Queen Cassiopeia's vanity. It demanded a princess sacrifice. Perseus saved the day, but the Cetus' sheer scale and hunger make it a nautical nightmare. Picture a kraken crossed with a leviathan too, massive and chaotic for a movie set to contain. The Chimera, 3 heads, are weirder than One Meet the Chimera, a mashup that screams mad scientist experiment. It's got a lion's body, a goat's head jutting from its back, and a snake for a tailo, and it breathes fire. Born from Typhon and Echidna, the ultimate monster power couple, it ravaged the land until Bellerophon and Pegasus took it down. This triple threat hybrid is so over the top, it'd break any film's creature design budget. Its name still means impossible mix-a-legacy, too quirky for Tinseltown. The Manticore Persian import, with a sting. Borrowed from Persian lore, the Manticore blends a lion's body, a human face, and a tail that fires venomous spines. Its name translates to man-eater, and it lived up to the hype, chowing down on anyone in its path. The Greeks loved exotic imports, and this spiky predator fit right in. A lion man with a built-in dart gun directors would balk at the logistics, but the ancients ate it up. The Stymphalian birds. Death from above, forget Hitchcock. The Stymphalian birds are the real avian horror show. These man-eating flocks had bronze beaks and metal feathers they could shoot like arrows. Hercules faced them as one of his labors, using a rattle from Athena to flush them out before picking them off. A swarm of killer birds with weaponized plumage, too absurd for a blockbuster, but perfect for Greek swamp lore. The Gorgons, stone-cold sisters. You know Medusa, but her sisters, Stheno and Euryale, round out the Gorgon trio. With snake hair, boar tusks, and a petrifying stare, they were so fearsome even gods steered clear. Perseus beheaded Medusa, but the immortal sisters kept the terror alive. Their grotesque visages adorned shields to scare off evil. Hollywood might manage the snakes, but capturing their raw dread, good luck. The Bonacon, the farting bull. Now for the truly bizarre, the Bonacon. This bull-like beast had useless inward-curving horns, but its real weapon was its rear. When threatened, it unleashed a fiery explosive spray of dung scorching up to 2 acres. It's so ridiculous it sounds like a Greek prank, yet it's a testament to their wild creativity. A monster that farts fire. No studio exec would greenlight that script. The Ichthyocentaurs mermen with horsepower. Finally, the Ichthyocentaurs. Think mermaids, but weirder. These sea dwellers had human torsos, horse legs, and fish tails serving as Aphrodite's chariot crew. They're less monstrous than quirky, a surreal blend of land and sea. Their oddball design would stump any filmmaker, but they shine as a testament to Greek imagination. From monsters to mayhem, the gods. Turn these creatures reveal the Greeks' knack for blending terror with the absurd, explaining the unexplainable through story. But the monsters aren't the only ones with quirks. The Olympian gods have their own share of bizarre moments. From Zeus' shape-shifting flings to Hera's petty revenge plots, the deities could outweird their monstrous subjects. Next, we'll dive into the gods' most cringe-worthy escapades, because even immortals have days they'd rather forget. You might picture the Greek gods as majestic and flawless, lounging on Mount Olympus with thunderbolts and ambrosia. But let's be honest, they had moments so awkward they'd make even a mortal blush. From cheating scandals to being outsmarted by babies, the Olympians were hilariously human when things went wrong. So settle in and let's dive into their most mortifying misadventures. Zeus and Io caught in a mootini. Zeus, the big boss of the gods, couldn't keep his hands or his lightning bolts to himself. One day, he fell for Io, a mortal priestess. When his wife Hera started sniffing around, Zeus in a panic turned Io into a cow. "Nothing to see here, dear," he might be said, shoving a hoofed Io behind a cloud. Hera, not fooled, cooed, "Oh, what a lovely cow. Can I keep her?" Trapped by his own trick. Zeus handed Io over. Hera tied her to a post with Argus, the hundred-eyed guard, watching her every moo. Zeus had to send Hermes to sort it out, but not before he looked like the ultimate divine dope. Fun fact, Io later popped up in Egypt as the goddess Isis talk about a career change. Scholars still argue if this tale hints at real ancient migrations or just Zeus' bad decision-making. Hephaestus's net, the affair that flopped. Hephaestus, the blacksmith god, wasn't thrilled when his wife, Aphrodite, started sneaking off with Ares, the war god. Instead of moping, he forged an invisible net, rigged it over their love nest, and Snap caught them mid-smooch. He hauled the tangled duo before the gods, who couldn't stop laughing. Apollo probably quipped, "Ares, you're all tied up today," while Athena smirked behind her shield. Aphrodite's cheeks burned hotter than Hephaestus's forge, and Ares just glowered. Here's the kicker. Hephaestus demanded a divorce, but the gods said no eternal awkwardness ensued. Was this a cosmic comedy or a lesson on loyalty? Experts still bicker over it. Hermes, the toddler thief. Hermes was trouble from the cradle. Barely a day old, he slipped out of his crib, tiptoed to Apollo's pasture, and swiped his sacred cattle. To throw Apollo off, he made the cows walk backwards, imaging hoof prints leading away from the crime scene. When Apollo tracked him down, Hermes played innocent, strumming a lyre he'd just invented from a tortoise shell. "Who me?" he grinned, handing it over. Apollo couldn't stay mad. Hermes was too slick. Most kids nab cookies. Hermes went for livestock. It's the perfect origin story for the god of thieves. Dionysus' pirates picked the wrong party. Dionysus, the wine-loving god, once got nabbed by pirates who thought he was a rich kid ripe for ransom. Bad call. As they sailed off, Dionysus smirked, and vines erupted from the deck, coiling around the mast. Leopards and bears prowled out of nowhere, and the pirate's jaws dropped. He cranked up the madness with hallucination. Sores turned to snakes, sails dripped wine. They dove overboard, screaming, while Dionysus lounged sipping from an invisible goblet. Pirates thought they'd struck gold, but snagging a god, that's a sinking business plan. It's a wild tale of divine payback. Ares jarred and jilted Ares. The tough guy war god met his match with the Alawati giants. These towering twins lured him into a trap and stuffed him in a bronze jar for 13 months. Picture Ares, all muscle and bravado, banging on the lid, yelling, "Let me out, you oversized brats." He stewed in there, probably complaining about the acoustics, until Hermes swooped in to free him. 13 months in a jar, that's a warrior's worst time out. Even gods can't win 'em all. Zeus nap time coup. Zeus didn't always have the upper hand, even with his family. Fed up with his bossy ways, the other gods, Hera, Poseidon, Athena teamed up for a sneak attack. While he snored, they chained him to his throne with divine shackles. He woke up roaring, "Who's got the guts?" Thunderbolts flew, chains snapped, and the rebels scattered. They slunk back later, muttering apologies while Zeus dusted off his ego. It's a rare glimpse of the king, brought low proof. Even Olympians have family drama. Hera's sticky situation. Hera, queen of the gods, wasn't above a fall. Hephaestus, still salty about her tossing him off Olympus for being lame, built her a golden throne with a twist it was a trap. She sat down, and click, she was stuck. The gods tugged and pried, but no dice. Enter Dionysus, who got Hephaestus drunk on wine, slung him over a donkey, and hauled him back to undo the spell. Hera's glare could have melted marble, but she had to laugh eventually. Revenge wine and a stubborn chair, it's a divine soap opera, from goofs to genius. These slip-ups show the Olympians at their messiest, tripping over their own immortality. But the Greeks didn't just spin yarns for laughs. They wove myths to puzzle out the world. Stories of gods and mortals sparked questions about the stars, the seas, even the human body. Those tales laid seeds for modern science, turning divine fumbles into stepping stones for discovery. So let's leave the godly gaffes behind and explore how myths lit the fuse of curiosity. You've probably heard Greek myths as bedtime stories or blockbuster movie plots, gods hurling thunderbolts, heroes slaying monsters, the usual chaos. But these tales weren't just entertainment. They were the Greeks' first stab at explaining the universe. Without telescopes, stethoscopes, or even a decent Wi-Fi signal, they used imagination to decode the stars, the body, and the mind. Turns out, those wild stories laid the groundwork for some of modern science's biggest wins. Let's take a stroll through ancient Greece and see how their myths lit the fuse for astronomy, medicine, and even a bit of head-shrinking psychology, because sometimes a good yarn is the spark science needs. Astronomy, the stars as a storybook. Imagine kicking back on a Greek hillside, no light pollution, just you and a sky bursting with stars. The Greeks didn't see random twinkles. They saw a soap opera up there. Constellations like Orion, the swaggering hunter, chased the Pleiades' 7 sisters who got starry-eyed to dodge him. Cassiopeia, the queen, too vain for her own good spins around the North Star as cosmic payback. Andromeda, saved by Perseus from a sea monster, shines as a testament to epic romance. These weren't just pretty pictures. They were practical. Sailors navigated by these starry myths, turning the night sky into a celestial GPS way cooler than your phone's map app, and no rerouting voice to nag you. The Greeks didn't stop at storytelling. They wanted the whole cosmic playbook. They figured the Earth sat smugly at the universe's center with the sun, moon, and planets circling it like obedient minions. This geocentric vibe came from myths about gods running the show: Apollo, racing the sun across the sky in his chariot, Helios cruising in a golden boat. It took Copernicus and Galileo to say, nope, the sun's the boss, flipping the script to a heliocentric model. But give the Greeks credit, their starry myths were the first draft of astronomy, even if they flubbed a few details. Plus, they named the planets Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn after their gods, and we're still using those tags today. Every time you blame Mercury retrograde for your bad day, you're nodding to a Greek legacy. Not bad for a crew who thought the sun was a guy with a learner's permit. Medicine snakes, dreams and divine healing. Now let's pivot from the stars to the sick room. Meet Asclepius, the Greek god of healing. rocking a snake-wrapped staff as his logo. Recognize it? That's right, it's the medical symbol, still plastered on ambulances and doctors' offices. Asclepius was the ultimate fixer-upper, and his fan club flocked to Asclepia temple spas where cures came via divine dreams. Picture this: you're snoozing on a stone slab, hoping Asclepius whispers the cure for your dodgy stomach. Sometimes his snake slithered over you as part of the treatmentless, relaxing massage, more surprise reptile therapy. Weird. Sure. But these spots were the ancient ancestors of hospitals mixing faith with proto-medicine. Asclepius' daughters were MVPs too. Hygeia, goddess of cleanliness, gave us Hygienia nod to the Greeks' hunch that a good scrub could fend off sickness way before we knew about germs. Panacea. Her sister was the goddess of cure-alls, inspiring the word panacea. And here's a kicker. Hippocrates, the guy who kicked off modern medicine with his oath, was supposedly Asclepius' descendant. Myth and science holding hands. The Greeks also had quirky ideas, like the liver being the emotional HQ, thanks to Prometheus, daily eagle liver pecking punishment. It took until the Renaissance to sort out that the liver's more about detox than drama, but at least they were swinging for the fences. These myths show the Greeks wrestling with health-blending divine vibes with early body hacking. Psychology Freud's mythical muse. Let's dive into the brain pan next. Sigmund Freud, the cigar-chomping psychoanalysis king, was a Greek myth superfan. He saw these stories as a goldmine for decoding human weirdness. His big hit, the Oedipus complex, named after Oedipus, who accidentally offed his dad and wed his awkward family reunion material. Freud thought this tapped into hidden desires we all secretly wrestle with. Then there's the Electra complex, from Electra, who plotted to axe her mom for killing her dad. Greek myths, the original dysfunctional family playbook. Freud's buddy, Carl Jung, jumped in too. Arguing myths reveal archetypes, universal patterns in our heads. Think Hercules or Perseus. Their hero quests mirror our own battles for meaning. These ancient tales didn't just entertain. They gave us a lens to peek into the psyche. It's bonkers that stories about gods and gorgons could shape modern therapy, but they do. Next time you're overanalyzing your dreams, tip your hat to the Greeks. They were navel-gazing with olive oil and togas long before therapy was a thing. Bridging to the Titans. So Greek myths weren't just campfire tales. They were the Greeks' way of cracking the universe's code, from starry skies to squishy livers to messy minds. But before the Olympian gods stole the spotlight, there were the Titan's elder deities who ruled the prequel era. These forgotten giants tangled with creation itself. Atlas hoisting the sky, think atmosphere vibes. Prometheus smuggling fire to kickstart human ingenuity. Their epic clashes, like the Titanomachy War against the Olympians. Echo, natures. Chaos, earthquakes, eruptions, the works. As we shift gears to their saga next, we'll see how these primal myths tried to explain the world's wild foundations, setting the stage for science to pick up the torch. You've probably heard the big names in Greek mythology: Zeus, hurling thunderbolts, Poseidon ruling the seas, Athena dishing out wisdom like it's going out of style. But before these Olympian superstars strutted onto the scene, there was a different crew running the show, the Titans. These pre-Olympian giants were the original gods, towering figures who shaped the cosmos with raw power and a family dynamic so dysfunctional it'd make your worst holiday gathering look like a picnic. Let's dive into their world of epic power struggles, where betrayal was breakfast and rebellion was the main course. The rise of the Titans, a cosmic coup. Imagine the universe in its wild early days. The Titans were born from Uranus, the sky god, and Gaia, the earth herself, talk about a power couple. These elder gods weren't just tall tales. They were the first rulers of everything striding across creation like they owned it. Which, to be fair, they kind of did. Among them was Cronus, the youngest but boldest Titan, who decided he wasn't cool with Dad's management style. Uranus had a nasty habit of locking up his less favored kids, like the Cyclopes and the hundred-handed Hecatoncheirison, the underworld Tartarus. Gaia fed up handed Cronus a sickle and basically said, "Fix this." So Cronus staged a coup, slicing Uranus out of the picture and claiming the throne. It was a bloody start to the Titans' golden age. But hey, no one said family ties were tidy. For a while, Cronus ruled supreme with his Titan siblings, like Oceanus Hyperion and Rhea by his side. The world hummed, along rivers flowed, the sun rose, the stars twinkled. But power has a way of making you paranoid, and Cronus heard a prophecy that his own kids would overthrow him, just like he'd done to Uranus. His solution: eat them. Yep, every time Rhea had a baby, Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon, Cronus swallowed them whole. He must have skipped parenting class, because that's not how you win Dad of the Year. The Titanomachy, when the kids fight back here's, where the plot thickens. Rhea, tired of her husband treating their kids like snacks, got crafty. When Zeus was born, she handed Cronus a rock wrapped in a blanket instead. Cronus, not exactly a master of suspicion, gulped it down, and Zeus grew up in secret plotting revenge. When he was ready, Zeus forced Cronus to cough up his siblings. Imagine that family reunion. And together, they declared war on the Titans. This was the Titanomachia 10-year throwdown that rocked the heavens and earth. Picture lightning bolts clashing with tidal waves, mountains crumbling, and Titans roaring as the Olympians fought for supremacy. The Titans had numbers and brute strength, but Zeus had allies like those freed Cyclopes, who forged his thunderbolts, and the Hecatoncheires, who hurled rocks with 100 hands each. In the end, the Olympians won, chaining most Titans in Tartarus, a pit so deep it's basically the basement of the universe. Cronus and his crew were out, and Zeus took the throne, proving that even the mightiest can fall when the kids team up. Meet the Titans, beyond the big boss. Cronus might steal the spotlight with his kid-eating antics, but the Titans were a diverse bunch. Take Hyperion, the Titan of light, who drove a golden chariot across the sky long before Apollo made it trendy. Or Oceanus, who wrapped the world in his watery embrace, fathering every river and stream. Then there's Themis, the Titaness of divine law, keeping chaos in check with her scales of justice. And who could forget Atlas? After the war, Zeus sentenced him to hold up the sky forever talk about a bad job assignment. Legend says he's still out there, shoulders aching somewhere in what we now call the Atlas Mountains. These Titans weren't just muscle. They were forces of nature shaping the world before the Olympians polished it up. Their stories are a mix of awe and absurdity, like a soap opera with cosmic stakes. What's it all mean? Scholars duke it out. So what's the deal with the Titans? Historians love to bicker over this. Some say they're symbols of natural forces. Cronus, as time devouring all Hyperion, as the sun's blaze, Oceanus as the endless sea. Others argue they're metaphors for a real shift in ancient Greece, where new gods and new ideas toppled the old guard. It's like debating whether a painting is genius or just splattered paint. Either way, the Titan's downfall feels personal. Their struggles mirror our own power family and the fear of being replaced. Pretty deep for a bunch of giants, right? The Titans today, from myth to mainstream. These ancient tales didn't just vanish into the ether, they've wormed their way into our world. Think of movies where gods battle it out, books that rehash these epic clashes, or even songs that nod to Atlas' endless burden. The Titans' power struggles still resonate, proving that a good story never really dies. In the next section, we'll explore how Greek myths like these pop up in today's culture, from blockbuster films to hidden references you might have missed. So stick around. The past isn't as far away as you think. You've probably binge-watched a movie or hummed along to a song without realizing it's dripping with Greek mythology. These ancient tales of gods, heroes, and monsters have snuck into modern pop culture like an uninvited guest who refuses to leave, and honestly, we're here for it. From blockbuster films to chart-topping hits, Greek myths are everywhere, often hidden in plain sight. So let's wander through the world of movies, books, and music to spot these sneaky references and see how they've been remixed for today's audience. Trust me, once you start looking, you'll never unsee them. Movies, gods, heroes, and a whole lot of CGI. Hollywood loves a good myth, especially when it involves epic battles and questionable family dynamics. Take Clash of the Titans, for example. This film drags Perseus out of the history books, arms him with a shiny sword, and pits him against Medusa and the Kraken in a visual spectacle that's more fireworks than fidelity. Sure, the original myth didn't have a mechanical owl sidekick, but hey, creative license. Then there's Percy Jackson and the Olympians, where the demigod son of Poseidon navigates high school drama while dodging minotaurs and furies. It's like The Breakfast Club, but with more lightning bolts and less detention. Even Wonder Woman owes a nod to the Greeks. Diana, an Amazonian warrior, is blessed by the gods and fights for justice, echoing the heroics of Achilles or Hercules, minus the lion skin. These films don't just retell myths. They remix them, making ancient stories feel fresh and binge-worthy. But it's not all about the obvious adaptations. Greek myths love to play hide-and-seek in subtler ways. Ever notice how the Matrix trilogy mirrors the journey of Odysseus Neo's quest to free humanity from illusion, is a high-tech spin on Odysseus' long, twisty road home? Or how about O Brother, Where Art Thou, a film that cheekily follows the beats of the Odyssey, complete with sirens and a one-eyed villain? These nods are like Easter eggs for myth nerds, rewarding you for paying attention in history class. Books, old stories, new voices. If movies are the flashy cousins, books are where Greek myths get to stretch their legs and dive deep. Authors like Madeline Miller have turned dusty tales into page-turners. Her novel, The Song of Achilles, reimagines the bond between Achilles and Patroclus, adding emotional heft to their doomed romance. It's like reading fan fiction, but with better prose and fewer plot holes. Then there's Circe, which gives the sorceress from the Odyssey her own spotlight, turning her from a side character into a fully fleshed-out anti-hero. These books don't just retell myths. They humanize them, making gods and heroes feel like people you'd swipe right on or at least grab coffee with. And let's not forget the YA crowd. Rick Riordan's Percy Jackson series has hooked a generation on Greek myths, blending ancient lore with modern sass. Percy's adventures, like battling Medusa in a garden gnome emporium or a gateway drug to the classics, proving that myths can be as addictive as any TikTok trend. These stories keep the old tales alive, sneaking them into backpacks and bedtime routines. Music myths, on the mic Greek myths, have also wormed their way into your playlist. Ever rocked out to Led Zeppelin's Achilles' Last Stand? It's a thunderous ode to the Trojan War, with guitar riffs that hit harder than Hector's spear. Or maybe you've belted out Sarah Bareilles' Hercules, where she channels the hero's strength to tackle her own battles. Even Beyonce Was Here subtly nods to the Greek idea of Cleosta's quest for glory that echoes through the ages. And if you've ever gotten lost in the haunting vibes of Fleet Foxes' Helplessness Blues, you're tapping into the same existential angst that plagued Odysseus on his endless voyage. But it's not just lyrics, album art, and music videos. Love to borrow from the Greeks too. Ariana Grande's God is a Woman video is a visual feast of mythological imagery, from her lounging like a modern-day Aphrodite to the nods to creation myths. It's like a crash course in art history set to a beat you can dance to. Why it matters. Myths in the mirror. These pop culture nods aren't just fun Easter eggs. They're proof that Greek myths still matter. By slipping into movies, books, and songs, these stories stay relevant, reminding us that humans have been wrestling with the same big questions: love, power, fate for millennia. Plus, they make the myths feel less like homework and more like a shared language. Ever bonded with a stranger over a Percy Jackson reference? That's the magic of myths in action. But here's the rub. While these adaptations keep the stories alive, they also raise tricky questions. Are we cherry-picking the fun bits and ignoring the messy parts? Is it cool to tweak ancient tales to fit modern vibes? Or are we losing something in translation? It's a debate as old as the myths themselves, and one that's worth chewing on. From pop culture to prophecy. Speaking of tricky questions, let's talk about one of Greek mythology's most mysterious elements, the oracles. These divine fortune tellers could make or break a hero's fate with a single cryptic message. But their prophecies weren't always what they seemed. Sometimes they were more manipulative than mystical. In the next section, we'll peel back the curtain on the dark side of oracles, revealing how these ancient influencers wielded power in ways that still echo in today's world. So stick around. The truth might surprise you. You're standing at the foot of Mount Parnassus, the air thick with the scent of burning laurel leaves, and the distant echo of chanting. Before you, the Temple of Apollo looms, its marble columns glowing under the midday sun. You've traveled far to consult the Oracle of Delphi, the most famous prophet in the ancient world. But as you step closer, a shiver runs down your spine. You've heard the rumors, whispers, that the oracle's visions aren't always what they seem. Tonight we're pulling back the curtain on the dark side of oracles, where divine guidance often masked manipulation and prophetic visions were tools of power as much as they were glimpses of fate. The Oracle of Delphi, divine or deceptive picture. The scene, the Pythia, the priestess of Apollo, sits atop a tripod in a trance-like state. Her eyes glazed, her voice a low murmur. Pilgrims from across Greece gather, hanging on her every word. She speaks in riddles, her prophecies cryptic and open to interpretation. You ask if you should go to war, and she replies, "A great empire will fall." You leave confident in victory, only to realize too late that the empire she meant was yours. This was the genius and the danger of the oracle's ambiguity. Her words could be twisted to fit any outcome, making her a perfect tool for those who knew how to wield her influence. Take King Croesus of Lydia, for example. He asked the oracle if he should attack Persia, and she told him that if he did, a great empire would be destroyed. Croesus, thinking it was Persia's doom, launched his campaign and lost everything. The empire that fell was his own. It's like asking a magic 8 ball for advice and getting reply hazy. Try again, except with higher stakes and a lot more gold on the line. The oracles. Vagueness wasn't just a quirk. It was a feature allowing priests and rulers to interpret her words in ways that suited their agendas. Manipulation. Behind the mysticism. But the oracles' influence didn't stop at ambiguous advice. Behind the scenes, the priests of Delphi were master manipulators using the oracle's reputation to shape political landscapes. They were the ancient world's spin doctors, and their prophecies were press releases. Need to justify a war, consult the oracle. Want to legitimize a new ruler? Have the Pythia declare them favored by the gods. It was a system ripe for exploitation, and history is littered with examples of oracles being bribed, coerced, or outright controlled to deliver the right message. One quirky tidbit: the Oracle of Delphi was consulted before nearly every major battle or political decision in ancient Greece. From the Persian Wars to the founding of colonies, her word was law. But here's the kicker: archaeologists have found evidence that the temple's priests may have been inhaling ethylene gas from a nearby fault line, which could induce hallucinations. So was the Pythia, truly channeling Apollo, or was she just high on fumes? Scholars still debate whether her visions were divine or drug-induced, but either way, the priest knew how to turn her ramblings into power plays. The psychological pull of prophecy. So why did people keep coming back, even when the oracle's advice led to disaster? It's simple: humans crave certainty. In a world where crops could fail, wars could erupt, and plagues could strike without warning, the oracle offered a glimmer of control. You might not understand why your life was falling apart, but if a prophet told you it was the will of the gods, at least you had an answer. It's the same reason we check horoscopes or obsess over weather forecasts today. We want to believe we can peek into the future, even if it's just a comforting illusion. This hunger for certainty made oracles incredibly powerful. They didn't just predict the future, they shaped it. By influencing decisions, they could steer the course of history. And when their prophecies went wrong, well, it was easy to blame the asker for misinterpreting the message. It's a classic case of heads, I win; tails, you lose. The oracle always came out on top. The legacy of manipulation. The dark side of oracles isn't just ancient history. It's a reminder of how easily belief can be weaponized. From political propaganda to modern-day fake news, the tactics of manipulation haven't changed much. The oracle's cryptic words are echoed in today's vague promises and carefully spun narratives. And just like in ancient Greece, those who control the message often control the outcome. But perhaps the most haunting part of the oracle's legacy is how it reflects our deepest fears. The Greeks believed that fate was inescapable, that no matter how hard you tried, destiny would catch up with you. This fatalism seeped into their myths, leaving a trail of stories that still send shivers down our spines today. Speaking of which, let's turn our gaze to the myths that still haunt us, tales of hubris, revenge, and the monsters that lurk in the shadows of our imagination. Because as much as we've evolved, some fears never die. You've journeyed through the wild, weird, and wonderful world of Greek mythology gods, with bizarre pets heroes who stumble, and love stories that make your worst date look tame. But now, as the night deepens, it's time to face the shadows. Some myths don't just entertain. they haunt. They tap into fears so primal, so universal, that they've lingered in our nightmares for millennia. From curiosity gone wrong to the dread of endless toil, these ancient tales still whisper warnings in the dark. So let's wander through the myths that still spook us today and see how their ancient fears echo in our modern world. Pandora's box, the fear of curiosity. Imagine a pristine world where all evils, disease, war, misery are locked tight in a jar. Enter Pandora, the first woman crafted by the gods, handed this mysterious container with one rule: don't open it. But curiosity, that itch we all know too well, wins out. She cracks the lid, and boom, out pour the evils that plague us to this day. Only hope stays behind, a bittersweet leftover. It's the ultimate cautionary tale, like a do not enter, sign you just can't ignore. This myth nails our fear of curiosity spiraling out of control. It's that moment you hover over a shady link, or when you wonder what happens if you mix every cleaner under the sink. Today, we toss around Pandora's box for anything that starts small but ends in chaos, like posting a hot take online and watching the replies explode. Hesiod penned this around 1200 BCE, but fun fact, some think Pandora was once a generous earth goddess, not a fall guy for humanity's woes. Scholars still squabble over whether it's a jab at women or a mirror to our reckless nature. Either way, it's a ghost that keeps us up at night, whispering maybe don't peek. Icarus and Daedalus, the fear of overreaching. Now picture this: Daedalus, a genius craftsman, builds wings of feathers and wax to escape a prison tower with his son Icarus. Stay low, he warns, but Icarus gets cocky. He flaps higher, chasing the sun until the wax melts and he tumbles into the sea. It's a gut punch of a story freedom so close, then snatched away by one bold move too many. This one's all about hubris, the fear of flying too high and crashing hard. It's the knot in your stomach when you bet big, maybe, on a wild stock or a karaoke solo you can't pull off. Icarus lives in our culture as the poster boy for ambition that oversteps from failed startups to epic faceplants on reality TV. Historically, some tie this to Minoan bull-leaping stunt acrobats soaring over horns tempting fate. Experts argue if it's a slap at disobedience or a nod to daring dreams. Whatever the take, it haunts us with a truth: the higher you climb, the harder you fall. Sisyphus, the fear of futility. Meet Sisyphus, a sly king who tricked death twice, only to get a punishment that's pure torture. He's stuck pushing a boulder up a hill forever, watching it roll back down just as he nears the top. No finish line, no win, just grind. If you've ever slogged through a soul-crushing job or laundry that never ends, you've felt his pain. This myth digs into our dread of pointless effort, of pouring sweat into something that never pays off. It's the nightmare of a treadmill, life running fast, going nowhere. We call endless tasks Sisyphean, like chasing inbox zero or fixing a leaky faucet that won't quit. A quirky twist: some say Sisyphus found peace in the madness, a Zen vibe in his eternal loop. Scholars split on it: bleak fate or subtle triumph. Either way, it's a specter that looms over us, especially when the alarm blares on Monday. The Minotaur, the fear of the unknown. Step into the labyrinth, a twisting maze hiding the Minotaur, half-man, half-bull beast born from a cursed fling between Queen Pasiphae and a divine bull. Trapped in Crete's depths, he devours young tributes sent to their doom. It's a monster movie. In myth form all growls and shadows. This story preys on our fear of the unknown, of monsters lurking in life's dark corners. It's the chill of a creaky house at night or scrolling through endless bad news. The labyrinth mirrors our messy paths, where every turn could spell trouble. Pop culture loves it. Think horror flicks and escape rooms. History buffs link it to Crete's Minoan palaces, like Knossos, with their sprawling halls. Was the Minotaur real, or a stand-in for tribute-hungry rulers? It's a debate that keeps spinning, but the fear it stirs, that's timeless stalking our dreams. Connecting to the wind down, these myths Pandora's slip, Icarus's plunge, Sisyphus' slog, the Minotaur's menaces stick with us, because they're more than tales. They're fears we live with, curiosities, cost ambitions, edge efforts, void the dark we can't map. But as we close this chapter, there's a flicker of light. Pandora kept hope. Sisyphus mighty grin through the grind. Next, we'll ease into the quiet, letting these ancient echoes settle, carrying a whisper of comfort into the night. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the quiet town, you stood at the crossroads of your journey. The air was thick with the scent of pine mingling with the faint earthy scent of the day's end. In the distance, a soft hum echoed a world moving forward, oblivious to the weight of the moment you now faced. You'd come so far. Trials had tested your courage moments, where fear clawed at your resolution, yet you pressed on. Allies had crossed your path, their faces etched into your memory, like family offering strength when yours faltered. And truths once buried had surfaced sharp and transformed, reshaping the very core of who you'd become. Now the path split before you, each direction pulling with its own quiet promise. To the left, the familiar road, home a life you once knew, now forever altered by the weight of your experiences. It calls to you with the comfort of routine, but could it hold the new version of you? To the right, the unknown, a shadowed trail, whispering of risks and revelations, a future unwritten and wild with potential. The choice was yours and yours alone. Your heart thudded a steady rhythm against the stillness. A gentle breeze brush your skin with the cool touch of dust as if nudging you forward. Above, the first stars blinked into view, tiny beacons in an endless sky. You took a breath, deep and sure, and stepped forward. The ground felt solid beneath your feet, each stride a quiet declaration. Whatever lay ahead, whether peace or peril, joy or struggle, you were ready. The stars seemed to brighten, and in that fleeting moment, you knew this wasn't truly the end, but a threshold. And so your story continues, only to realize too late that the empire she meant was yours. This was the genius and the danger of the oracle's ambiguity. Her words could be twisted to fit any outcome, making her a perfect tool for those who knew how to wield her influence. Take King Croesus of Lydia, for example. He asked the oracle if he should attack Persia, and she told him that if he did, a great empire would be destroyed. Croesus, thinking it was Persia's doom, launched his campaign and lost everything. The empire that fell was his own. It's like asking a magic 8-ball for advice and getting reply hazy. Try again, except with higher stakes and a lot more gold on the line. The oracles. Vagueness wasn't just a quirk. It was a feature allowing priests and rulers to interpret her words in ways that suited their agendas. Manipulation. Behind the mysticism. But the oracle's influence didn't stop at ambiguous advice. Behind the scenes, the priests of Delphi were master manipulators using the oracle's reputation to shape political landscapes. They were the ancient world's spin doctors, and their prophecies were press releases. Need to justify a war, consult the oracle. Want to legitimize a new ruler? Have the Pythia declare them favored by the gods. It was a system ripe for exploitation, And history is littered with examples of oracles being bribed, coerced, or outright controlled to deliver the right message. One quirky tidbit: the Oracle of Delphi was consulted before nearly every major battle or political decision in ancient Greece. From the Persian Wars to the founding of colonies, her word was law. But here's the kicker: archaeologists have found evidence that the temple's priests may have been inhaling ethylene gas from a nearby fault line, which could induce hallucinations. So was the Pythia truly channeling Apollo, or was she just high on fumes? Scholars still debate whether her visions were divine or drug-induced, but either way, the priest knew how to turn her ramblings into power plays. The psychological pull of prophecy. So why did people keep coming back, even when the oracle's advice led to disaster? It's simple: humans crave certainty. In a world where crops could fail, wars could erupt, and plagues could strike without warning, the oracle offered a glimmer of control. You might not understand why your life was falling apart, but if a prophet told you it was the will of the gods, at least you had an answer. It's the same reason we check horoscopes or obsess over weather forecasts today. We want to believe we can peek into the future, even if it's just a comforting illusion. This hunger for certainty made oracles incredibly powerful. They didn't just predict the future, they shaped it. By influencing decisions, they could steer the course of history. And when their prophecies went wrong, well, it was easy to blame the asker for misinterpreting the message. It's a classic case of heads, I win; tails, you lose. The oracle always came out on top. The legacy of manipulation. The dark side of oracles isn't just ancient history. It's a reminder of how easily belief can be weaponized. From political propaganda to modern-day fake news, the tactics of manipulation haven't changed much. The oracle's cryptic words are echoed in today's vague promises and carefully spun narratives. And just like in ancient Greece, those who control the message often control the outcome. But perhaps the most haunting part of the oracle's legacy is how it reflects our deepest fears. The Greeks believed that fate was inescapable, that no matter how hard you tried, destiny would catch up with you. This fatalism seeped into their myths, leaving a trail of stories that still send shivers down our spines today. Speaking of which, let's turn our gaze to the myths that still haunt us: tales of hubris, revenge, and the monsters that lurk in the shadows of our imagination. Because as much as we've evolved, some fears never die. You've journeyed through the wild, weird, and wonderful world of Greek mythology gods, with bizarre pets heroes who stumble, and love stories that make your worst date look tame. But now, as the night deepens, it's time to face the shadows. Some myths don't just entertain, they haunt. They tap into fears so primal, so universal, that they've lingered in our nightmares for millennia. From curiosity gone wrong to the dread of endless toil, these ancient tales still whisper warnings in the dark. So let's wander through the myths that still spook us today and see how their ancient fears echo in our modern world. Pandora's box, the fear of curiosity. Imagine a pristine world where all evils, disease, war, misery are locked tight in a jar. Enter Pandora, the first woman crafted by the gods, handed this mysterious container with one rule: don't open it. But curiosity, that itch we all know too well, wins out. She cracks the lid, and boom, out pour the evils that plague us to this day. Only hope stays behind, a bittersweet leftover. It's the ultimate cautionary tale, like a do not enter sign you just can't ignore. This myth nails our fear of curiosity spiraling out of control. It's that moment you hover over a shady link, or when you wonder what happens if you mix every cleaner under the sink. Today, we toss around Pandora's box for anything that starts small but ends in chaos like posting a hot take online and watching the replies explode. Hesiod penned this around 1200 BCE, but fun fact, some think Pandora was once a generous earth goddess, not a fall guy for humanity's woes. Scholars still squabble over whether it's a jab at women or a mirror to our reckless nature. Either way, it's a ghost that keeps us up at night, whispering maybe don't peek. Icarus and Daedalus, the fear of overreaching. Now picture this Daedalus, a genius craftsman, builds wings of feathers and wax to escape a prison tower with his son Icarus. Stay low, he warns, but Icarus gets cocky. He flaps higher, chasing the sun until the wax melts and he tumbles into the sea. It's a gut punch of a story freedom so close, then snatched away by one bold move too many. This one's all about hubris, the fear of flying too high and crashing hard. It's the knot in your stomach when you bet big, maybe, on a wild stock or a karaoke solo you can't pull off. Icarus lives in our culture as the poster boy for ambition that oversteps from failed startups to epic faceplants on reality TV. Historically, some tie this to Minoan bull-leaping stunt acrobats soaring over horns tempting fate. Experts argue if it's a slap at disobedience or a nod to daring dreams. Whatever the take, it haunts us with a truth. The higher you climb, the harder you fall. Sisyphus, the fear of futility. Meet Sisyphus, a sly king who tricked death twice, only to get a punishment that's pure torture. He's stuck pushing a boulder up a hill forever, watching it roll back down just as he nears the top. No finish line, no win-just grind. If you've ever slogged through a soul-crushing job or laundry that never ends, you've felt his pain. This myth digs into our dread of pointless effort, of pouring sweat into something that never pays off. It's the nightmare of a treadmill, life running fast, going nowhere. We call endless tasks Sisyphean, like chasing inbox zero or fixing a leaky faucet that won't quit. A quirky twist, some say Sisyphus found peace in the madness, a Zen vibe in his eternal loop. Scholars split on it, bleak fate or subtle triumph. Either way, it's a specter that looms over us, especially when the alarm blares on Monday. The Minotaur, the fear of the unknown. Step into the labyrinth, a twisting maze hiding the Minotaur, half-man, half-bull beast born from a cursed fling between Queen Pasiphae and a divine bull. Trapped in Crete's depths, he devours young tributes sent to their doom. It's a monster movie in myth form, all growls and shadows. This story preys on our fear of the unknown, of monsters lurking in life's dark corners. It's the chill of a creaky house at night or scrolling through endless bad news. The labyrinth mirrors our messy paths, where every turn could spell trouble. Pop culture loves it. Think horror flicks and escape rooms. History buffs link it to Crete's Minoan palaces, like Knossos, with their sprawling halls. Was the Minotaur real, or a stand-in for tribute-hungry rulers? It's a debate that keeps spinning, but the fear it stirs, that's timeless stalking our dreams. Connecting to the wind down, these myths: Pandora's slip, Icarus's plunge, Sisyphus' slog, the Minotaur's menaces stick with us, because they're more than tales. They're fears we live with, curiosities, cost ambitions, edge efforts, void the dark we can't map. But as we close this chapter, there's a flicker of light. Pandora kept hope. Sisyphus' mighty grin through the grind. Next, we'll ease into the quiet, letting these ancient echoes settle, carrying a whisper of comfort into the night. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the quiet town, you stood at the crossroads of your journey. The air was thick with the scent of pine mingling with the faint earthy scent of the day's end. In the distance, a soft hum echoed a world moving forward, oblivious to the weight of the moment you now faced. You'd come so far. Trials had tested your courage moments, where fear clawed at your resolution, yet you pressed on. Allies had crossed your path, their faces etched into your memory, like family offering strength when yours faltered. And truths once buried had surfaced sharp and transformed, reshaping the very core of who you'd become. Now the path split before you, each direction pulling with its own quiet promise. To the left, the familiar road, home a life you once knew, now forever altered by the weight of your experiences. It calls to you with the comfort of routine, but could it hold the new version of you? To the right, the unknown, a shadowed trail, whispering of risks and revelations, a future unwritten and wild with potential. The choice was yours and yours alone. Your heart thudded a steady rhythm against the stillness. A gentle breeze brush your skin with the cool touch of dust as if nudging you forward. Above, the first stars blinked into view, tiny beacons in an endless sky. You took a breath, deep and sure, and stepped forward. The ground felt solid beneath your feet, each stride a quiet declaration. Whatever lay ahead, whether peace or peril, joy or struggle, you were ready. The stars seemed to brighten, and in that fleeting moment, you knew this wasn't truly the end, but a threshold. And so your story continues,